Good morning, traders. TG Watkins here. It's August 16th when I'm recording this. Hope you guys are having a great day and a good weekend. So this is going to be the list that we go through. And yeah, let's go over here and take a look at some of the stuff that we've had this week. It's been a little bit choppy. Obviously, the market has recovered since the great pullback of August 1st. It's kind of a joke in the side of the Moxie room because we were seeing that the market underneath the surface was starting to weaken, starting to come down. We could see that through breadth, and you could probably see that through a lot of your own positions and a lot of your own tickers. Things were starting to come down because, well, the market was getting a little bit overbought. And I was expecting some sort of pullback. We got that. We got that big pullback on August 1st. It was a Friday. I was actually traveling that day. And we managed to cash some in, but then after that, the market just bounced. And that's what I told you guys about in last week's video. And underneath the surface, we did start to see some repairs. We saw the market come up, and we did see things start to come up off of their lows. But overall, it seems like a lot of names are still kind of working themselves out. So we have been adding to positions, but they're kind of incubating or waiting for things to kind of get warmed up. And so that's why, if you look here, TEM, that one had a good move. That was after earnings. And remember, we're still kind of towards the tail end of earnings season. And a lot of these moves were based on earnings. Think of Soundhound and think of TEM and any else that really moved because of earnings. So TEM, we've already been in the leverage ETF of that. We added calls after the earnings once I saw that price was moving. We're up 89% on those. BMNR, everybody probably knows about this one. It's the Ethereum treasury from Tom Lee. We got in right as that thing started to move. We were up something like 80%, but it's backed off a little bit. We're back down to about plus 52%. Still not too much to complain about. But then Bitcoin, BitX, it's kind of been down. It's been chopping a little bit sideways. We're still green on our original position. I have not added to it. And you can see that it pulled back, towards the end of this week. So I'm like, all right, kind of just wait for that. So Bitcoin's kind of waiting. We even saw some cryptos kind of get sold off into this week because we had, OPEX. And then RCAT, UMAC, these are drone stocks. I've had a few variety positions in these things. So all told, basically break even. They had earnings Thursday or something, and they're mostly sideways. RCAT's down a little bit, but mostly sideways for where I'm in. Tesla, we put a position. It came up. It pulled back a little bit. We're break even on that. We're waiting for that to move. And Webull, same kind of deal. We put a position. It pulled back. It came back up. We're kind of break even on that. I'll show you some of these charts, but you can see that I'm just kind of waiting for these things to go. And then IonQ, we did the leverage ETF, which is IonL. I bought it at the top of the range. I got stopped out. It's still kind of chopping. Once again, we're waiting for some of these names to really get moving. And kind of what I was talking about last week is we're looking at the market. Is it going to go sideways instead of down? Like we got our pullback August 1st, and I was expecting a little bit more downside, but instead the market recovered. So maybe this market's actually pretty strong, and it's going to go sideways for the August seasonal weakness that we are kind of expecting. So I'm kind of letting things digest and do that. And so we got a lot of long positions. Most of them are doing pretty well. Rest of them are kind of just doing sideways, and we're just kind of waiting for the market to kind of find its next footing. And I think part of it is that we had OPEX. August options expired. So we had that. We also had a hot PPI. This is the producer price index. And I think this wasn't too much of a surprise. Everyone kind of knows with tariffs, that there's been a lot of talk about increased costs for the producers, for the importers, and all that kind of stuff. And now the real question is this going to get passed on the consumer, and are we going to start seeing hot CPIs coming out next? Now, obviously the market didn't really care about the PPI. It came down in the morning and then kind of right back, and mostly the market's been sideways for the last 3 days. So we got to figure out if this is going to matter at some point in the future, or if it's going to kind of be a delayed reaction situation. That's kind of what everybody's wondering about, and how this might affect Jerome Powell and FOMC in September, and are they going to do a rate cut? From my understanding, we still have a high likelihood of a rate cut, but maybe 25 basis points, something like that. I still think that would be pretty good. I mean, any rate cut's better than no rate cut, right? Assuming that the market likes that. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Trump, Putin, a big story this weekend. They met. Basically, not much came out of it. Progress has been made, is what he said. No deal yet. I don't think anybody expected a deal to be made on this meeting. This seems like just the beginning of something. But hey, it seems like a good thing. If they can keep talking, then great. Whatever the deal is, I don't know. It's probably going to be great for some people, bad for some people. Everybody's going to complain about it. It seems to me that at least they're talking, and maybe we'll make some progress on this. I know that the market also has not really cared about the Ukrainian war situation. And so, I kind of wonder if they can get that resolved, if there is a truce or peace or a deal. Not that it would be really affect the market too much, because it hasn't, but I think that would just kind of add more motivation and a little bit more momentum to what we're seeing here. I think it would add to the backdrop. So, hopefully things start resolving in that direction. Remember, guys, you're watching this, remember to like and subscribe since you want to see more of these. I hope you do. And remember, this is for educational purposes only. And so, guys, if you want more information and figure out what we do and join the Moxie room, come over to simplertrading.com/Moxie, and we'll see you there. Okay, so let's get into a few of the names and sectors and what we're looking at. If we come over here and we look at the SPX, yes, we had a nice recovery off of that August 1st pullback, the great pullback of August 1st. Like that's all we're going to get. It's just one big day and then the market recovers. And this has been a really good recovery. In fact, it was boosted by CPI. We had a great CPI, or at least we had a cool CPI. Market loved it, shot up. But it got a little overbought. This was a nice move, nice recovery, and now we're just a little too far away from the moving averages. We're a little, far from the moving averages. There's kind of some error, and so I think the market now needs to digest this particular move, and that's kind of what we're seeing, and also leading up to OPEX, that situation. And so I'm kind of been posing to my subscribers, how is the market going to digest this move? Is it going to go sideways and let the moving averages come up to it, and we keep going higher? Or is it going to come down and then find support and then go higher? That's what we don't know. And I guess even the third option is if there's a little bit of a trickery out there in the market, if some weakness does seep in, could this thing come down and actually keep going down a little bit further? Every option is always on the table with the market. You never quite know. And we are in an area of seasonal weakness, even though this market is still very, very strong. And so we just need to be prepared if things happen that we just don't really think are going to happen. Like we didn't really see that coming, but we need to always be prepared that it could happen. So I would like to think that this market is strong and that it will go higher, but I think it needs to kind of digest this particular move. And so that for now, that's all I'm kind of saying, but just in case it starts getting a little bit weaker, more than we think, just keep that in the back of your mind. So we got that, and you can look at the RSP, which is the equal weight, and you can see we're still basically in a range. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, is that we saw weakness towards the end of July. We got the pullback, we got the recovery, and now we kind of need to digest and get some follow through. And that's generally what I'm seeing, is that yes, we had a nice big pop up from CPI. Basically, the small caps really loved the cool CPI situation, but it created a overbought condition. I mean, just look at the 2-day move on the RSP. It was a really big move right into a previous high. And now we got to go sideways or pull back a little bit in order to digest this move. Of course, I'd love to see this find support and continue moving higher. But in case it doesn't, just in case they open the trap door, just always kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And then we go over to the NASDAQ. Once again, we saw a big move. And you can see this, big move off of that August 1st low. Fantastic, that's great. But at some point, it's going to get a little extended near term. And that's what I'm seeing here, is you can see that the market did end up actually pulling back on Friday a little bit. Maybe it's got some things to do with OPEX. We saw the semiconductors down. We saw tech down. We saw Bitcoin crypto down. And so that's why I think the NASDAQ is down more than the S&P. But you could also see it was starting to kind of get a little frothy. And that's why I'm saying, hey, it seems very reasonable to have this thing come down like this. And now we're going to have to see what it wants to do from there. If we look at the IWM, if I type that properly, and you can see here, same kind of deal. The small caps loved the idea of a cool CPI, and you can just see it absolutely skyrocketed for 2 days. But it's overbought. What happens? Well, you need to come back down and you need to digest that move. And that's kind of what I'm seeing in through here. And so the real question is, are we going to get follow through to the upside? Now, how long is it going to take? How much of a move down? And what's it going to look like before we start moving back up? Of course, I'd love to see that. But just in case that this starts to get a little bit weaker, we need to be prepared that in case it wants to come down a little bit more. Now, there is also a thing I showed my subscribers, is look at the red line that I have here and notice where price is. It's right here at this red line. Well, what is this red line? It is basically the all-time high from 2020 and 2021. And you can see we pushed past it in 2024, but then the whole tariff tantrum situation happened and the market came down. So you can see, at least for the IWM, about 227 is a big deal. It's a big deal. I've had that red line drawn in there for years at this point, basically since the top of COVID. And you can see it's just right there. So can it get past it? That is something that I want to be looking for, hopefully in the next few days, weeks, and see if this thing can actually keep moving. If it can, then great. Small caps, game on. All right, then if we look at the Dow up strongly because of UNH. That's a big one. That's kind of the news of the week, as UNH finally turned around, and big players coming into that one. But you can see nice big move, better than the other indices. It's still a little extended. You can see here it is making new highs, but a little extended. So just don't be surprised if it needs to do some backing and filling to test support and actually confirm that it wants to be this high and wants to keep going higher. All right, then if we look at the SMH, starting to see not weakness, but again, we had a pretty big move off of that August 1st low. You can see actually the SMH, the semiconductors, had a nice double bottom right there, and then popped right up like that. So that was that recovery from August 1st. But once again, it got a little overbought. It started to pull away from these moving averages and create air and gaps underneath its moving averages. And so that's why I've been telling the Moxie subscribers, even like Wednesday, I said, hey, things are getting a little frothy. Don't be surprised if we start seeing some pullbacks. And sure enough, we did. And you can see that on SMH, you can see that on NASDAQ, and heck, you can even see that through the cryptos. And so now the question is, where does it go from here? Not entirely sure. I'm kind of curious about next week because OPEX will be out of the way. We do have Jerome Powell speaking. We've got Jackson Hole happening. We probably have a few economic reports coming out. And we have FOMC minutes. Now, really, FOMC minutes doesn't really, it's not really much of a thing, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then if we look at FNGS, this is the ETF of the FANG stocks. And you can see how the market basically worked off its overbought condition. Like going into, like July was very bullish, but you could see that the internals were just too much. And so what did the market do? Well, it mostly went sideways, had a little pop, then had a flop, and then they recovered. And so, yeah, it's largely been sideways for quite some time. And then you can see we're starting to recover. So all I want to see is continuation to the upside if we are going to keep going to the upside. If it does not go to the upside, then we'll have to reassess and see what's happening and check in at that point. Okay, so speaking of breadth, let me show you this. And this is where you can see that, yes, the market coming into July was great, but it was pretty hot because we were seeing the market go higher and the internals were going lower. And that is why I was able to pick up on August 1st that the market was going to go down, and it did. And then, boy, it recovered very quickly. So that was kind of the thing, is it recovered very quickly from that big drop. And you can see, yes, we did start to get breadth and the internals to recover and go with it. But as I said, you can kind of tell that Thursday, Friday were down days this week. And you can see here that we had a kind of nice move up and then it came back down. And I'm sure you guys were kind of experiencing that and feeling that with your own accounts. And then if we look at the VIX, it's down, it's nice. This, once again, this was, if we look here, this was the peak of the VIX for the August 1st drop. And I figured, yep, we're going to bounce. Of course, this thing is straight up. It is unlikely to keep going like that. We're definitely going to come back down. Now, the thing that was that I didn't quite foresee is I was looking for this to pull back, and I thought it was going to hold some support and then move up a little bit, something like that. Instead, since the market completely recovered, this thing completely fell apart and just kept going down, 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 down. No turnaround. So great, that's nice for the market, but not quite what I was expecting. The only thing I'm going to point out right now is that you can see that the VIX is leveling out. It looks like it's trying to build a little bit of a near-term base. And, maybe that's because of OPEX, but you could also see that the market was pulling back this week, and so VIX was kind of coming up a little bit. As long as this doesn't get into a trend, we're good. What we don't want to see is we don't want to see the VIX actually catch support and then move up. Obviously, that would be bad for the market. If this is just a bear flag to where it's coming back into moving averages and then comes back down, great. Then that'll be a continuation of the market to the upside, and that's what we want to see. And then if we look at the UVIX, same kind of deal. The only thing I can really point out here is that it was leveling out for a few days here. We just need to make sure that that's a bear flag, which is good for the market, as opposed to this actually catching support and wanting to pop up, which is bad for the market. All right. Some individual names. If we look at UNH, big moves on this one. Now, I remember when everybody on Twitter was wanting to buy UNH around here because they're like, oh my gosh, value stock, and this company is not going to go away and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, seems a little bit early. Seems a little bit too early to me. And at the time, that was correct. You can see price came down. It did not get over any of the moving averages and continued to slide down. And then even on earnings, it dropped even further. And then after that, the only thing I could point out is we started, well, I didn't even get the Moxie Indicator until Friday. The only thing I can point out is that there was a tiny little double bottom on the hourly chart and price got over the hourly 50 and the Moxie Indicator crossed. I still don't know if that would have been enough for me to get in on a move like this because, this name has been beat up and down and I'm just not going to go risk my money on something like this. I'm not an institutional trader. I'm not a big hedge fund. I don't need to go put millions or billions of dollars into this thing over the course of days and weeks in order to build my position. I can be in and out in a minute. And so I didn't need to trade anything that's like this. However, the news is that Warren Buffett and then a bunch of other institutional, I think Michael Burry and a few other people, big names, big funds, were actually getting into UNH. And the news came out about that on Friday, or at least Thursday night, something like that. And so that is why this thing popped up. I guess the big boys were coming into this thing. Great. You know what? If anything, if you want to trade UNH, great. Now it actually means that this is on the table. And whether you buy it right here, just be prepared. It could pull back before going higher. Okay. Or if you do buy here, maybe it goes higher, but then at some point it'll pull back. So you're just going to have to figure out what you want to do for your portfolio on something like this. But yeah, I would say now that the news is out and now that this thing has solidly turned around and is right back to where it was a few weeks ago, probably game on. But you're going to probably want a longer term horizon on something like this because, first of all, Warren Buffett is not a short-term trader, which is great if you want this to be part of your portfolio. But also, it's got a lot of work to do to recover. It's got a lot of the moving averages going against it. So it's going to have some work, okay? So either you short-term trade it because it's got some work or you long-term trade it and hold on to it because, well, the bottom is probably in. All right, so that's UNH. And then if we look at NVIDIA, there's hard to really say much about this. The Moxie Indicator, because this thing has just been grinding higher, has kind of been not easy to work with. And you can see that NVIDIA has been kind of backing off over the last few days. You can see it basically double top and it's been backing off. And I think that is having some effect on SOXL, SMH, the NASDAQ. And you can see it is really starting to come back down into the daily 21. Now, does this mean it's going to go down or pull back? I have no idea. And I don't think I'd really want to bet on that direction. The only thing I'm kind of thinking of is that, yes, it has gotten pretty stretched. It's been a heck of a move. And at some point, it's probably going to have a hard time just keep going up and up and up. So it's probably going to have to take a breather. That might be what's happening. And maybe what's happening is it's taking a little bit of a breather going into earnings. Now, again, what do you do about earnings? I really can't say too much. I probably would not bet against it because if anything, this kind of looks like Microsoft. Because if you look here, you see Microsoft was doing the same thing NVIDIA was doing, where it was just up and up and up and up and up and up, and it just wouldn't stop. And then it had earnings, and even there, it jumped up on earnings. Now, granted, it was a little excessive, and for the most part, it's really just kind of going sideways, but it's still perfectly in trend. Look at this. You take that little bump out, and it's still perfectly in trend. So I'm just saying that for NVIDIA, there is a good chance that it could be doing the same thing. As I said, it's going to be really hard to want to bet against it, and so, probably stay long and see what earnings brings you. But yeah, earnings, always an unknown. Okay, Joby. Wanted to mention this one because, news got in the way of what I was trying to do here, and I do want to follow up with this. I was short Joby here. Now, there was a clue that I should have gotten out of my short position. It was on that Friday, August 1st. The entire market went down. Joby didn't budge. That should have definitely been a clue. I was in the airport. I had 40 minutes before my flight. I'm not trying to make excuses, but that's kind of where my brain was. I should have taken that off. I want to say that if I were in my normal situation, I would have looked at that and been like, market is down big. I'm short Joby and Joby didn't go down. Maybe I need to get out of this thing because obviously it's got relative strength. And then the news came out the next day that they merged with BLDE or something like that, and it shot up. And so that shot my short. But if you look at this, that was just a news blip. It came right back down to where it was, and now look at it getting rejected by these moving averages, and now it's actually breaking below the daily 21. So I just want to show this because, of course, welcome to the market. That's how things happen. I want to say that my original idea of being short Joby, I think is actually going to pan out. It just took a little side tour or side detour first before doing that. Okay. So anyway, let's just follow up and being honest with you guys and how this kind of stuff works. So yeah, I'd be expecting Joby to come down a little bit. I think that would be good. It would be healthy because even if you wanted to be long Joby, you should want it to come back down a little bit to give you a little bit better of an entry. All right. MJ, cannabis. Yeah, I have missed this thing. We've been discussing it casually inside of the Moxie room, actually since about back here. We started to see the cannabis start to wiggle a little bit. And then just a few days ago, more news from the Trump administration came out, and you can see here clearly most of the cannabis stocks, exploded to the upside on big volume. It seems to me that now, because of that news, because now the administration is either basically giving the green light, no pun intended, or the thumbs up, green thumb, or anything else like that, cannabis seems to be in play. Now, of course, you don't want to go chase it up here. That's not a great place to get in. You can clearly see it's pulling back. But what I mean is when a move like this happens to a whole sector, and it's because of the administration, yeah, it kind of puts it on the radar now. And so that just means that give us some time, let it come back down, find your spots. And it seems to me like the cannabis industry is probably now playable. Okay, so keep that on your radar. All right, Palantir and a few other names. This is indicative of what we've been seeing out there. We have been seeing some very, very strong names, as we know. And at some point, they're a little excessive. We've been seeing a lot of names, LM&D, jump up like this, and we just can't chase them. I mean, unless you're already in, or unless you're going to be day trading these things and like get in and trade for 3 days. If you're looking for a swing trade, you got to kind of wait. And that's what's going on with Palantir. Is it had a nice move, and now they're coming back down. And at some point, if you're going to be a swing trader or a longer term investor, then you'll wait for these pullbacks and then you can get into it. And so I just want to show you, just be patient. A lot of these names, yes, they jump up, but they come back down. They give you opportunities. Or look at SoundHound. Same kind of deal. We've been trading SoundHound here and there. The last big trade I had on SoundHound was all the way back down here, which was 250 something percent. Great trade. And then I trade in here. I think we gave up 10%, no problem, because it went down. And then I don't like to trade earnings, but look what it did on earnings. Yeah, nice big move. Okay, but what do you do with it? Unless you're a day trader, I have to wait for the next position. I cannot chase this thing up here. I have to wait for this thing to come down. And whether it comes down or goes sideways, this is just, I need to wait. And that's what I'm doing with SoundHound. I would love to have this thing in my portfolio and be trading it, but I don't want to be trading it right here when it comes right into its previous big, thick, congestion zone, and it's very extended here. So I just got to wait on these things. And that's why I'm saying that there's a lot going on with this market, lots of opportunity, but a lot of things you just have to wait. You have to let it kind of come to you. And then let's see, Bull. I know a lot of people have been talking about this one. It's a big popular name, maybe kind of related to or might be moving like Robinhood. We're in this, and yeah, we're just kind of waiting. Seems like it's incubating there. So yeah, I just want to show you guys we're in it. I think it's looking okay, and we're just kind of sideways, letting it incubate. Okay, so Weeble's looking good, and SBET. This is a little bit of an indicative of what the weakness we saw with the crypto coming into the weekend. Bitcoin was down, MSTR is down, a handful of the Bitcoin miners were up, the rest of them are still kind of down. BM&R kind of pulled back a little bit. Ethereum itself pulled back a little bit. And so SBET, they had earnings. Initially, it didn't really do too much, and then they kind of let it go this on Friday. I am very close to getting stopped out. I did have a relatively tight stop on this, basically right here. So I might get stopped out on Monday. That's okay. If this thing starts to turn back around, then I'll get back in. But ultimately, if you look at this, it's really just kind of going sideways. So I was kind of looking I really wanted to see if this thing actually moved from here, but I think the timing was off because it seems like the crypto market economy wasn't quite ready to carry this. And so I'll probably get out of this thing and then just wait for the next opportunity I see, whatever that might be. Okay, but just, let you know. All right, guys, just remember, like and subscribe since you're watching this on YouTube and if you're enjoying it. And then we'll see you over at simplertrading.com/Moxie if you guys want to see more about what I do and join the Moxie Club and crew. We're having a great time. We'll see you there. Take care.